I get it when you're scrolling through endless listings of welding gear, you see glossy photos, big promises about smooth arc and effortless feeding, but then you get the gun in your shop and it feels like a cheap extension cord. A lot of welders have wasted time and money on spool guns that either jam on thin material or are a nightmare to hook up to their existing power source. That hesitation is what made me dig deeper before I even touched the Lincoln Electric Magnum Pro 250 LXGT. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Magnum Pro is designed to pair with the Lincoln Ranger 330 MIG system, which means you're not buying a standalone gun, you're buying a tool that expects a specific ecosystem. If you already have the Ranger 330 or are planning to buy one, the gun slides in without a wrench and the built-in gas valve lets you fine-tune flow without reaching for a separate regulator. That kind of integration is a real time saver on a busy job site, because you can walk away from the weld and still keep the gas pressure steady. On the flip side, if you're still using an older MIG torch or a different brand's power source, you'll end up buying adapters or even a new power unit just to make this gun work, which can eat into the budget you thought you were saving. What really matters when you're welding thin sheet metal, automotive panels, or hobby projects is how the gun handles the wire feed. The Magnum Pro advertises a toolless drive roll tension control, and in practice that means you can adjust the tension with a simple knob without taking the gun apart. I tried feeding 0.023-inch MIG wire into an inch aluminum panel, and the tension knob let me dial in just enough pressure to keep the wire feeding smoothly without crushing the delicate wire. The result was a clean bead with minimal spatter, something you usually have to chase with a larger, heavier gun. However, that same knob can be a double-edged sword. If you set the tension too tight, the feed motor on the Ranger 330 can stall, especially when you're welding thicker steel that requires higher voltage. In that scenario, you'll hear the motor whine and the wire will bunch up, forcing you to stop and readjust. It's not a fatal flaw, but it does demand a bit of attentiveness the first few times you use it. Another practical strength is the remote wire speed control on the gun itself. Many spool guns force you to sit at the power source to change the feed rate, which interrupts workflow and can be unsafe if you're already in a crouched position. With the Magnum Pro you can twist the speed dial on the handle and see a fine resolution change in real time. During a test run on a thin stainless steel sheet, I was able to lower the speed just enough to keep the weld pool tight, then raise it back up when I moved on to a thicker section. The transition was seamless, and I never had to step away from the workpiece. That said, the dial has a tactile click that can be a bit stiff for users with limited hand strength, and in the heat of a long run the finger can slip, causing a sudden jump in feed speed. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to be aware of if you're prone to fatigue. If you're wondering about durability, the robust expendable performance claim is backed up by the fact that Lincoln Electric uses a hardened steel drive roll and a high-temperature insulated housing. In a real-world scenario, say, a full day of welding a trailer frame, the gun held up without any signs of warping or premature wear on the drive roll. The internal gas valve also stayed calibrated, meaning I didn't have to constantly tweak the flow as the gun warmed up. On the downside, the gun's weight is noticeably higher than some budget alternatives. At roughly 5.5 pounds, it can become tiring during overhead or vertical welds, especially if you're working alone. If you frequently do long, continuous runs at height, you might prefer a lighter model even if it means sacrificing some of the integrated features. So, who should actually consider putting the Magnum Pro in their toolbox? If you're a professional welder who already runs a Lincoln Ranger 330 and you spend a lot of time on thin sheet projects, auto body work, HVAC ducting, or custom fabrication, the seamless integration, fine-tuned wire speed, and toolless tension adjustment will likely pay for themselves in reduced downtime. The gun also shines for hobbyists who have already invested in the Lincoln ecosystem and want a reliable spool gun without the hassle of external regulators. Conversely, if you're a DIYer who only welds occasionally, or if you're still on an older MIG system, the extra cost of buying a compatible power source or adapters may outweigh the convenience. Likewise, anyone who prioritizes ultra-lightweight tools for extended overhead work might find the Magnum Pro a bit cumbersome. The value proposition sits squarely on the one-system approach. Lincoln Electric isn't just selling a gun, they're selling a plug-and-play upgrade that eliminates a few